Hey guys, what's up? It's Nick here with my channel Living Rich, and today I'm gonna do a book review on why beautiful people have more daughters. This book, it's an evolutionary psychology book, fun as fuck. So I'm gonna start with things I really like about it, and then continue on with other things I really like about it. And then after I talk about things I like about it, I'm gonna talk about things that I like about it some more. And then maybe at the end, I'll see if I can develop some criticism for this easy, fun, and very, very logical read. I think that's why I liked it the most, because it takes a lot of these kind of very emotionally charged issues in society and it breaks them down into very, very logical kind of spaces where, you know, you can see the root cause of these issues or these tendencies throughout society. And it kind of takes really fun questions and gives fun answers to them. And it's not, I think the tone of this book is one of the cooler things about it. It's not a very judgmental book. It does its best to take a look at human psychology or evolutionary psychology and human culture in a very unbiased way, although it does have a scientific bias to it. And that could raise other sorts of, you know, issues. But I think for this type of book, it's a very novel and unique way of looking at the world, and that's why I recommend going out and checking it out. Again, why beautiful people have more daughters. And so now I'm just going to go through a few of the concepts of the book that I liked, resonated with, and frankly remember, because it was a pretty long book and they addressed a lot of different things, and I only took so many notes in it. So, and I have a little bit of notes here on my little book, but getting into it. So I think one of the underlying factors here that kind of drives this book is they look at humanity as a whole instead of from separate cultures. And what they theorize is that all these cultures are only differentiated by very small situational differences, or maybe not situational differences, but very small practical differences. And underlying all that, the same things happen, and then they give stats to back it up. And so religion, one of the theories in this book is that religion is biologically programmed into us. And culture as well is biologically programmed into us. And that these things spring up naturally in all human cultures. And it's a universal norm that there is something that humans believe in as a higher power or a higher source or whatever you call religion. Another thing they go deep into is the difference of mating goals between men and women, due to the fact that women have a limited number of eggs and their cost of investment is higher than men, and that leads to them being more picky than men are with sex, which is, you know, everyone knew this, but it's just kind of like looks at the underlying factors of it. Serial monogamy, or kind of resulting in polygamy on an overall basis. If you look at the world today, there's a lot of people will get married, then divorced. And while I think on the surface level think we're a monogamous culture here in the US, there's a it's sort of like little spurts of monogamy with one person, and you break up with that person and then you go on to somebody else. And I think that's kind of how we do it. Some other cultures, they'll have like ongoing polygamy where there are multiple people together at the same time, or like one partner with one person having multiple partners at the same time, whether it's a man. And there's not really any women with this kind of deal. And the book goes into explain. I don't quite remember what it said, but you can check out the book. Going on to looks and how we value what people look like. There's the chapter name in this book where it talks about looks is called Barbie designed, or Barbie made by Mattel, designed by evolution. And it basically talks about how women looking blonde with big boobs and curvy figures for a man is the ultimate, you know, the height of the reproductive prize for them. And it goes to look at like the blonde hair. It symbolizes youth because younger girls usually have blonde hair. Big breasts, more fertile, or it wasn't exactly more fertile. It was something else. Youthful skin, yada yada yada. I kind of spread this book out over a little bit of time, so the exact details of it are fading, whatever. But you get the idea. This is the kind of stuff it talks with, and it does a lot better job breaking it down into detail than I am doing right now. Going to war is something it talks about as well. It's saying that our genes are hardwired to be xenophobic because we're meant to take care of our own family, and we're able to go to war if someone looks different with us a lot easier than if they look the same. Because again, we're hardwired to our genes to take care of genes that are very similar to ours and to help them propel into the future, reproduce and survive. And we only stop becoming racist when we train ourselves not to be. And so it's saying that we're born racist and then we culturally brainwash ourselves not to be racist. Another thing was that monogamy benefits men. I think this is a point that is not quite understood, or understood by men, or it's like counterproductive. Like men think that it would be amazing to have a polygamous culture, when in reality what ends up happening is there are very few men with a lot of resources who are very good men, whatever it is, whatever that they're abundant in, whether it's looks, money, or whatever. There are very few men who get the majority of the women, and then all these average guys or less than average guys are left to not mate. So it's a very skewed kind of scale where you have a very few men getting lots of women, and this happens in societies that are a lot poorer with a lot less resources, because the women will flock to the successful, abundant men and leave these other like lame ass chode dudes with no one there, and that becomes their story, and they don't reproduce, and then these abundant men end up having a plethora of kids and producing you know, big families. Anyways, in a more abundant culture where there's more resources and it's more spread out and egalitarian, then the men do the monogamy to kind of balance things out, because it's not like there's not as much benefit for a woman getting like 1/10 of a very successful man when there are so much more successful men in the market, and their needs and their reproductive like child rearing days will be able to be taken care of by more and more men, as opposed to a poorer society. All right, on to the next one. There's a really funny quote in there about a Native American chief saying something in a movie like when he sold the lands of Seattle, or Chief Seattle, blah, 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 in Washington, when he sold the lands to the mayor of the town, and he said, he was basically, I'm paraphrasing all of this because I don't remember the exact notes, but he basically said, will you teach your children to appreciate the lands as we have done? Will you teach, them to have the same environmental awareness? And the breakdown by these two evolutionary psychologists who wrote the book basically said that, look, this was a made-up phrase for a movie. And then eyewitnesses who reported about the fact a few years ago said that Chief Seattle just thanked the mayor of Washington or whatever it was, and went about his business. And that the Native Americans or many species went extinct while the Native Americans only were here. So a universal part of our culture or our humanity is that we use resources. And it's not just limited. I think white people are very hard on themselves because we kind of had this idea that like life was all grand back and before we came here and just took over all the Indians' land, or yada yada yada. But there's another book that goes really deep into this called Guns, Germs, and Steel, and it basically highlights in several different ways how the ability and the situation in Europe for the white people or the Europeans to develop the guns, the germs, and the steel is what gave them the capability to come conquer the Native Americans. And if the Native Americans would have had domesticatable large mammals, they would have done the same and developed those germs and developed the steel and technology and the food production from that. And it would have been swapped, or at least a stalemate between the two places. But because we developed the guns, germs, and steel first, we came and took over. And this book is just basically reiterating that the Native Americans weren't such this perfect society that was beautiful and didn't destroy anything. Like, they had wars amongst themselves, and they destroyed animals and ate them just like we destroyed animals and ate them ourselves. It's just we had a little bit more of an advantage, so we were able to go farther and create all this society we see around us. Anyways, now to the final and kind of coolest, most applicable theorem in this book is called the Savannah Principle. And the Savannah Principle is this like really cool idea that our brains and our body stopped evolving 10,000 years ago at the advent of agriculture. And they stopped doing so because once agriculture came along, since that has happened, there has been no set stimuli for evolution to work against or with. And so, for example, back back in the day, for, you know, however long humanity has been around, for about 1 million years, I think it is, as it is, we had to hunt and run and get animals and do all this stuff, be very active and pick berries and, like, you know, see stuff moving. And then all of a sudden we have like all this food just given to us from these farms, like from these farm workers working. And then as we begin to harness all that extra food, the societies grow. And then the societies specialize. And all of a sudden, instead of just farming, you have people like doing woodworking or metalsmithing. And then you have horses and riding, and so you don't have to run as far on your own. And then from that, you know, evolved the Industrial Revolution, and then we had factory workers, and then now it's mostly mental workers where like we're doing things like this, or writing books, or, you know, information work. And because the stimulus has kept changing, and because the stimulus has changed so much quicker than the evolution pace adapts at, it's been like just the spinning, and evolution hasn't adapted to anything. And it's just, or it's adapted very slowly in very negligible ways. So our brains now are essentially the same that they were back when we lived on the savannah in Africa. And here are the consequences of that. Images that we see on TV, we don't differentiate from, like, our brains can't really tell the difference from what we see on TV and from what we experience in real life. 2, we still get really jealous with our mates and become very protective of them. 3, we overeat because we internally feel like there's not going to be another, you know, more resources coming, or we're not sure whether there are more resources coming, like on the savannah, although now there's a wide abundance of food everywhere, and we're like sugars, fats, anything that we can just store in, and then we become obese. And so that's the savannah principle, is that our minds haven't matured past and our bodies really haven't matured past the 10,000 years ago when we were on savannah, because they have not yet had the chance to catch up with all these technological, agricultural, and social changes within the world. And that's a very important principle when you're looking at yourself, on what you eat, like the types of food, like whether you know, we eat, you know, processed food or natural food, and even like the types of natural food, whether they're working with our bodies. It's this great, amazing, traditional overlook that 99% of our culture has just like passed over. And because, you know, stimulus is changing, shit's exciting, and we're like, oh, we don't need that little important food. And it's something that if you're really trying to hack your body, maybe not hack your body, but have a very healthy, like resilient lifestyle, it's something that you got to understand. It's something that you got to, you know about and realize how it applies to you and your world, so that you can go and consciously evolve your habits to adapt to the constantly changing stimulus that we have now. So those were some of the little tips and points I got from the book, Why Beautiful People Have More Daughters. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a little bit out of that, and I recommend going and picking this up. It's by Alan S. Miller and Satoshi Kanazawa. And yeah, I'd love it if you subscribe to my channel. I do a lot of these book reviews. I do a lot of, you know, just things that I learned going through my daily life. I'll share these with you. And got some cool collaborations coming up in the future. and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much. Again, this was Nick. Have a great day. Peace.